The movie begins by showing Jules, a hardworking clerk at an antique store in Buffalo, New York. Jules has had a tough year since the passing of her sister and brother-in-law, as she's now the legal guardian of her nephew, Milo, and niece, Maddie. The two mischievous children are a handful, and Jules must work extra hard to provide for them and keep them in line.
Good.
Milo!
Mrs. Kelly?
Matters take a turn for the worse when Jules loses her job due to her employer's financial problems, caused by the lack of customers at the store. This setback comes at a terrible time, as Jules already has her hands full with Milo and Maddie. To add insult to injury, the babysitter quits after being unable to handle the children's constant teasing and mischief. Jules is at her wit's end after losing her job and her babysitter, and she's had to reprimand Milo and Maddie for driving the nanny away. In an effort to teach Milo a lesson about stealing, Jules punishes him for taking a video game, which only makes him sulk and resent her even more. To top it all off, the upcoming Christmas holiday is a painful reminder of the children's parents' death. As the night wears on, Jules is surprised by an unexpected visitor, Paisley. The butler reveals himself to be in the employ of Edward, the children's grandfather and a duke in Castleberry, a small European country. To Milo and Maddie's amazement, they learn that their grandfather is a duke and that he's invited them for a vacation at his residence. Paisley has even gone so far as to prepare airplane tickets for their journey. Jules is initially hesitant to accept the invitation to Castleberry, but her reservations quickly dissipate when Paisley reveals that Edward is sick. Jules realizes that Milo and Maddie have every right to visit their grandfather, especially if his health is in jeopardy. She doesn't want to deprive them of the opportunity to meet their grandfather and spend quality time with him, especially if he may not have long to live. The following day, Jules, Milo, and Maddie arrived at Edward's opulent residence, where they were greeted by a team of welcoming maids. The maids quickly whisked them away to their lavish and breathtakingly beautiful bedrooms, which made the children giddy with excitement. One of the maids, a woman named Birch, informed Jules that Edward had invited them to dinner that evening and stressed the importance of being punctual. However, she neglected to tell Jules where the dining room was located and vanished before Jules could ask her any further questions. Determined to find the dining room, Jules decided to explore the palace on her own. As she wandered through the halls, she stumbled upon Prince Ashton, the younger brother of her late brother-in-law. Jules was instantly smitten with Ashton and found herself captivated by his charm and good looks. After a brief exchange, Jules mustered up the courage to ask him where the dining room was located, and he kindly showed her the way. As dinner time arrived, Jules eagerly anticipated seeing Edward, hoping he had regained his health. When she saw him looking well, she rushed over to hug him. But the atmosphere at dinner was tense and uncomfortable. Jules attempted to ease the tension with small talk, but Edward's responses only made her feel more uneasy. Milo, on the other hand, was more direct in his approach and asked Edward why he had waited so long to invite them, and why he had never visited them in the US. Edward was honest with his response, admitting that he was struggling to accept his eldest son's decision to marry a non-noble woman. However, he had come to realize his mistake and wanted to make up for it by taking care of his two grandchildren. As dinner ended, Ashton headed to Edward's study to discuss his plans for a hunting event. However, Edward was vehemently against the idea and the father and son began to argue. During their disagreement, Jules unexpectedly entered the room and asked about the lack of Christmas trees in the palace. Edward, clearly agitated, expressed his distaste for Christmas trees and claimed he would never celebrate the holiday again. Despite Edward's animosity towards Christmas trees, Jules couldn't let the holiday season pass without one. She took Milo and Maddie into town to buy a beautiful Christmas tree. As Jules returned to the castle, she ran into Ashton, who was getting ready for a hunting trip. He introduced her to his fiancée, Lady Arabella, who didn't seem to have a fondness for Jules. However, Jules didn't let that bother her and instead began to decorate the Christmas tree in the company of Paisley. As she worked on the tree, Birch suddenly appeared and tried to stop Jules, insisting that Edward didn't like Christmas trees. Jules calmly reminded Birch of her own childhood love for Christmas, which caused Birch to reminisce about her past and break down in tears. She decided to join Jules in decorating the tree until it was complete. As Arabella made her way home, Milo and Maddie ran into her while playing, causing her expensive bag to fall and nearly get run over by a passing car. Arabella now harbored an even greater dislike for Jules, whom she believed to be incapable of properly caring for Milo and Maddie. Despite the tensions with Arabella, Jules continued to decorate the Christmas tree that night with the help of Ashton, Maddie, and Milo. However, when Edward accidentally stumbled upon them, he was outraged that they had disobeyed his orders not to celebrate Christmas. But as Maddie handed him an ornament, he unexpectedly softened. The ornament reminded him of one his brother had given him as a child, and he remembered the joy he had felt during Christmas celebrations in the past. With Edward's heart now warm to the idea of Christmas, Jules invited him to join in the decorating, and he hesitantly accepted. Edward's newfound enthusiasm for Christmas continued as he planned the grandest dance party on Christmas Eve. He quickly instructed Paisley to send out invitations to his relatives and friends, eager to spread the holiday spirit. Ashton caught wind of the news and offered to teach Jules how to dance like a royal. However, during their lesson, Jules surprised Ashton by showing him some modern dance moves. Later, Ashton and Edward worked together to curate the guest list for the party. They both agreed that only titled and sophisticated individuals should be invited, lest an uncultured guest spoil the festivities. As they chatted about the upcoming party, Jules couldn't help but overhear their conversation. Misinterpreting their words, she believed they were speaking ill of her. The misunderstanding left her feeling disheartened and out of place. Adding insult to injury, one of the maids accidentally burned Jules' only dress while ironing it. Jules saw this as a convenient excuse to skip the party altogether, hoping to avoid any further discomfort. As Milo explored the house, he stumbled upon a locked room that had always piqued his curiosity. Against his better judgment, he couldn't resist the temptation to find out what was inside. To his surprise, he discovered that the room was his father's study, filled with photos of his parents. Milo felt a pang of longing for his parents. Eager to share his discovery, Milo confided in Ashton, his close friend. Frustrated and confused, Milo demanded an explanation for why the study was always locked. Ashton comforted Milo, assuring him that his parents would always be in his heart. He promised to leave the door unlocked, giving Milo the option to revisit the room and cherish the memories captured in the photographs. As Christmas Eve approached, Jules felt overwhelmed and out of place during the preparations for the upcoming ball. With a heavy heart, she made the difficult decision to pack her bags and return to the United States, hoping to find a new job as soon as possible. Only Milo and Maddie were aware of her departure, and Jules asked them to keep it a secret until she was gone. Despite their best efforts to persuade her to stay, Jules was resolute in her decision to leave. She couldn't bear the thought of being excluded from the festivities and spending Christmas alone. Edward's cold behavior only added to her sense of isolation, leaving her with no choice but to say goodbye. As Jules boarded the train, Birch suddenly realized that she was missing. In a panic, she and a few other maids rushed to the station to bring Jules back. Thankfully, Jules' train had not yet left the station. The maids pooled their resources and surprised Jules with a beautiful new dress, pleading with her to return to the palace with them. Touched by their kindness and generosity, Jules felt a renewed sense of belonging and accepted their invitation to attend the party. As the party roared on, Ashton requested a private conversation with Arabella. Once alone, he revealed his suspicion that she did not truly love him. To test his theory, Ashton announced that he wanted to end the relationship. Much to his dismay, Arabella appeared indifferent to the news. In a moment of brutal honesty, she confessed that she had only dated Ashton for his wealth and status. The truth was a crushing blow to Ashton, who had hoped for a genuine connection with Arabella. Jules arrived at the party donning her new dress, much to the delight of Maddie and Milo. However, despite her fancy attire, Jules still felt like an outsider among the partygoers. As she stood on the sidelines, watching the others dance, Ashton approached her and inquired why she wasn't dancing. Jules responded by expressing her fear of being a poor dancer and ruining the event. Perplexed by her answer, Ashton probed further, encouraging her to explain her feelings. Jules hesitantly revealed that she overheard a conversation between Edward and Ashton, mistakenly believing that they were speaking about her. However, Ashton quickly corrected her, clarifying that the subject of the conversation was not Jules, but rather a woman named Bunny who disliked children. With the misunderstanding cleared up, Ashton took the opportunity to express his admiration for Jules and asked her to dance. Consumed with jealousy, Arabella took it upon herself to demonize Jules, a kind and hardworking aunt who had dedicated her life to raising her niece and nephew. In front of the assembled guests, Arabella spewed vile accusations, calling Jules a gold digger who was only after Ashton's wealth. But just as it seemed that Jules had no one to defend her, Edward stepped forward to set the record straight. With a fierce passion, Edward defended Jules, calling Arabella out on her own privilege and inability to work for anything in her life. Ashamed and embarrassed, Arabella fled the palace, leaving Jules to bask in the warm glow of Edward's approval. He even went so far as to encourage Ashton to confess his true feelings for Jules, knowing that the two were clearly smitten with one another. Finally, Ashton mustered up the courage to take Jules outside and confess his love for her. To his delight, Jules returned his feelings. Edward led his family to the Christmas tree room where a festive surprise awaited them. As they stepped inside, their eyes widened in amazement at the sight before them. The room was aglow with twinkling lights and glittering ornaments, and a mountain of presents lay piled high beneath the tree, revealing thoughtful and heartwarming gifts that Edward had arranged for each of them. And as they rushed to the window, they saw a dazzling display of fireworks lighting up the sky. Several months had passed since the festive holiday party, and the air was thick with excitement and anticipation as Ashton and Jules prepared to tie the knot. The couple stood before their loved ones, beaming with happiness as they exchanged their heartfelt vows. The moral that can be learned from this movie is never forget your dreams because sometimes dreams come true.